The Rolex crown's been a permanent fixture on the high street for decades, and now they're shrinking at a shocking pace. But Rolex isn't going out of business. They're just closing hundreds of local doors to move into a mansion, and your local jeweler isn't invited. Let's address the elephant in the room. The 40 stores in Germany rumor isn't just internet chatter, it's actually happening. I've seen reports that long-standing partners, some who've held the Rolex crown for over 50 years, are losing their licenses by the end of 2026. When a jeweler in Stuttgart gets the letter after half a century, people naturally panic. They see those empty windows and assume the Rolex bubble has finally burst. But here's the reality check. Rolex production isn't slowing down. In fact, it's actually going up. They're pumping out over 1 million watches a year now. The collapse everyone's talking about isn't a lack of watches, it's the lack of doorways. Think of it like a telephone game gone wrong. A few dealers in Germany lose their status, a couple of boutiques in Hong Kong relocate, and by the time that news hits your feed, it's been twisted into a global retail apocalypse. It makes for a great doom and gloom headline, but don't let the noise fool you. Rolex is simply cleaning house. They aren't retreating from the market. This is a strategic move towards becoming much more selective about who they let represent the crown. It's a brutal time to be a small-town jeweler. Rolex is currently sending out the letter to hundreds of authorized dealers, and the reason is basically a high-stakes investment trap. If you're a family-run shop and you can't or won't drop $2 to $3 million on a boutique standard lounge with specific marble and lighting, you're out. The crown doesn't want to be sold next to engagement rings and silver charms anymore. They want a dedicated temple. There's also a heavy dose of location snobbery happening right now. Rolex is effectively exiting the strip mall luxury tier. They are moving exclusively toward high street prestige places like Bond Street or Fifth Avenue. If your local dealer isn't in a Tier 1 zip code, Rolex is very likely to be pulling the plug. But the real sting? The human cost. You might have spent 10 years building a relationship with the local guy, bringing him coffee and buying your wife's jewelry there just to get on a list. But if that dealer loses their license by the end of 2026, your purchase history and that relationship effectively drop to zero overnight. It's a cold reminder that in this new era, that the brand owns you now, not the jeweler. To understand where all those watches from the closed stores are going, you just have to look at 665 Fifth Avenue. This is the new 2026 milestone, a massive 28-story glass headquarters in the heart of Manhattan. This isn't just a store, it's Rolex's new temple. The strategy here is fewer but bigger. Rolex has realized that one massive flagship they control is infinitely more valuable to the brand's image than 20 small independent shops scattered across the suburbs. Walking into this place is basically the Disney World of Rolex. We're talking the first 4 levels dedicated entirely to retail. But it's the upper floors that tell the real story. You've got museums, private lounges, and entire brand experience zones. It's designed to over-educate you until you feel lucky just to be there. By consolidating, they're turning a transaction into a pilgrimage. They don't want you to just buy a watch. They want you to experience the architecture, the history, and the sheer scale of the company. It's an intimidating, high-gloss world where the watches are the stars, and the sales floor feels more like a curated art gallery than a shop. Then we have the Bucherer deal, which was the ultimate Trojan horse. By buying the world's largest retailer, Rolex now practically has cradle-to-grave control over your wrist. They aren't just taking the retail margin on new pieces, they've effectively captured the certified pre-owned market too. It's a closed-loop ecosystem. They sell you the watch, they service the watch, and eventually they buy it back to sell it again as certified pre-owned. This is scarcity engineering at its very finest. Fewer doors mean Rolex has total oversight on exactly who gets a Daytona. It's not that they're making fewer watches. Trust me, production is still very healthy. It's that they're much more surgical about whose wrist they end up on. They want to make sure these watches go to brand loyalists who won't just flip them, rather than a random walk-in at a local jeweler. Here's the heads up. In this new landscape, being a Bucherer VIP is basically the only safe bet left in the game. If you aren't shopping where Rolex has a direct stake, you're essentially playing on hard mode. The independent era is dying, and the corporate era is officially taking over. Here's the twist that sent the internet into a tailspin. Recently, Rolex did something nobody expected. They officially killed off the Carl F. Bucherer watch brand. This was the legendary passion project of the late Jörg Bucherer, and had been around for more than an astonishing 130 years. But from Rolex's perspective, they didn't buy Bucherer to sell Carl F. watches. They only bought it for the real estate. This is where the hundreds of closures headline actually originates from. That brand was sold in about 250 stores worldwide. When Rolex gave the order to rip out those displays in the start of 2026, people saw empty shelves and panicked, screaming that Rolex is closing 250 stores. But let's take a moment to really clear out the air here. There is a massive difference between the retail network, the Bucherer stores, and the defunct watch brand, CFB. Rolex isn't closing the stores. Think of it like them just evicting a tenant to make more room for themselves. It's cold and rather calculated corporate housekeeping. They are literally cleaning the clutter to ensure that when you walk into a Bucherer, the only story being told is the story of the crown. The news got it wrong because they couldn't distinguish between the shop and the sign on the door. If you've been playing the game with a local authorized dealer like discussed earlier, it's time for a serious reality check. We are currently seeing a massive relationship reset. If your local AD is one of the ones losing their license by the end of the year, your spot on their wait list doesn't just move, but it usually vanishes. I've heard horror stories of collectors with six-figure spends suddenly finding themselves back at square one because their guy is no longer an official partner. You also have to look at the new 2026 price hikes. Rolex just bumped retail prices by another 5 to 7%. They aren't trying to compete with Omega anymore, and are moving the goalposts to sit squarely alongside Patek Philippe and AP. They want to be a high carrier brand. My actionable advice? Go audit your dealer right now. Look for the signs. If they don't have that new 2026 boutique interior with the specific lounges and lighting we talked about, your history is at risk. If they look like a traditional 1990s jewelry store, they are likely on the chopping block. Don't wait for the windows to go dark. Start moving your profile to a flagship or a Bucherer-owned location before the door locks for good. Does this make you want Rolex more, or does it make you want to walk across the street and give your money to Patek or Vacheron instead? Let me know what you think in the comments.